This meeting of the India Planning Commission is now called to order. Can we please get roll call?
Commissioner Isiano,
Present.
Commissioner Fajardo,
Present.
Commissioner Lopez,
Present.
Vice Chairperson Franz,
Present.
Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja.
Present. Can we also get introduction of staff that's attending?
Kendra Reeve, Principal Planner.
Jessica Belman, Commissioner Secretary, and also Nicholas Gutran, Planning Technician.
And Assistant City Attorney Lauren
Thank you.
Sanchez is joining.
And
remotely.
Commissioner Fajardo, can you lead us in the pledge? Thank you. This is time set aside for public comments that are not on the agenda. Do we have any public comments?
There are none.
Okay. And then we ask if you are wanting to speak on an item with the agenda, if you could please fill out the request to speak right out there and hand it over to Ms. Melban so that we can make time for you. Okay, we'll move on to item 4.1, Planning Commission meetings of January 25th. Planning Commission minutes from February 8th. Do any commissioners have any comments or edits? And February 8th. Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for January 25th, 2023 and February 8th, 2023.
I'll second.
Can we please get roll call?
Commissioner Isiano,
Yes.
Commissioner Fajardo,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Chairperson Franz, Vice Chairperson Franz,
Yes.
Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to public hearing item 5.1, resolution of the Planning Commission, conditionally approving a tower market, conditional use permit, and design review. Do we have a staff report?
Chair, I need to recuse myself. I live within the amount of where the proposed site is on the agenda today, so I need to recuse myself.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Can we please get staff report? Oh, yeah, thank you.
Can IT please bring up the PowerPoint for a tower market? Thank you. The applicant, Mark Vassie, on behalf of Tower Energy Group, submitted an application for a conditional use permit and for design review for a 12-pump gas station fueling island and 5,400 square foot convenience store on May 5th, 2022. The project will be constructed on a currently vacant and heavily disturbed parcel of land off of Dr. Carrion Boulevard and Monroe Street. The project site has a general plan designation of mixed-use neighborhood. Primary uses in the mixed-use neighborhood general plan designation include, but are not limited to, office use, retail use, multifamily use, and general commercial uses along major streets. The project would be an allowable use within the mixed-use neighborhood designation with a conditional use permit. Site access will be taken from a shared access drive on Monroe Street at the north edge of the site and from a second access drive on Dr. Carrion Boulevard on the west end of the site, served by an existing dedicated turn lane into the 2.41 acre site. Stormwater retention is provided in the northwest corner of the site. Development also includes a generous landscape plan comprised of desert and other drought-resistant planting material, as well as gravel and boulders that further naturalize the landscaping. Rooftop solar panels are also planned, along with charging stations. The development standards for mixed-use neighborhood under the Unified Development Code allows for a maximum height of 55 feet or 5 stories. The project consists of one fueling station and the project site consists of a fueling station and one-story convenience store with a maximum height of 25 feet. The project will have an overall height of approximately 21 feet and a maximum height of 25 feet. The following images show the different building elevations. This is the south elevation and the west elevation. The next slide depicts the north elevation and the east elevation. This image depicts the main entry north elevation, the main entry south elevation, and the enclosures. This would be the building elevation for the fuel canopies from the north and the east, and then again from the south and the west. The project complies with all of the city's objective design standards for landscaping and building placement, which are meant to enhance the architectural features of the building and relate it to the surrounding landscape. The proposed landscape areas are along the perimeter of the project site and within the building open spaces. Landscaping throughout the project site consists of primarily desert and other low to moderate use water use plants. The project will be utilizing various mixes of clay, cement plaster, wood, stone, brick, and aluminum clad to construct their interior and exterior designs. The materials that will be utilized will be of various cohesive colors that will withstand the test of time and different weather elements. This is consistent with Land Use Policy 4.3 in the general plan. The project will construct a mission-style building that will contain a mix of materials, columns, and cohesive plant colors. The mission-style building will have various roof heights, columns, and archways that will create a building design that is unique to the project area, and this is also consistent with Land Use 4.5 in the general plan. The project would not cause a significant adverse effect on the environment because the project will be constructing a new gas station and convenience store on a heavily disturbed site that is not a viable habitat for wildlife, is less than 5 acres in size, and is consistent with the City of Indio's general plan and zoning code with a conditional use permit, and it can adequately be served by utilities and public services. The project is categorically exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15332, infill development. Further, there is no substantial evidence indicating that any of the exceptions set forth in CEQA Guidelines 15300.2 apply to the project. Staff analysis. The proposed project is compliant with General Plan 2040. With a conditional use permit, the project is compliant with the Unified Development Code. The project is categorically exempt from CEQA, and with the application of relevant conditions of approval, the project can be approved. Conditions of approval are binding and must be adhered to. I'm available for any questions should you have any. The applicant is also here along with their consultants to address any questions you may have.
Thank you, Kendra. Do we have any questions from the commissioners for staff? Okay, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And will the applicant please make a presentation?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Mark Vasey with Tower Energy, Tower Market. First, I'd like to thank the Planning Department for their work on getting us to this point. We spent a few meetings with them working on the design and some features such as artwork and everything out on the intersection. As far as the building itself, I have our architect here, our engineers, to answer any questions that you might have on those features. One thing I did want to address, it's common that it's referred to as a C-store or a gas station. We look at it more as a neighborhood market because we're carrying fresh fruits, produce, meats. It's not just to quote, gas stations. So that's one thing I just wanted to point out and address. We put a lot of effort and pride into our buildings and the architecture, and it's something that we are proud of and feel that would make the city and that intersection to boost that area. As far as working with the planning group, one thing we talked about was a feature out on the corner of putting some artwork there. If you can you pull up a couple of the photos that of the interior of our stores too? And, just the clicker.
There's one right there.
This one. Just forward there. Okay, there we go. So again, as you can see, it's we feel this is not just a 2,500 square foot convenience store. Let's see. I'm trying to move to the. There you go. You can't reach it. I want to get to the. I'll tell you. Yeah, there you go. So this is some photos from some of our other stores too. You can go ahead and show the next one. Go ahead. And we've added meats to most of our stores too. So again, we're all here to answer any questions that you have on it. And thank you again for commissioners.
Great, thank you. We do have some requests to speak here in person, and then I'm not sure if we have some online, but I'll start with the ones here. Mr. Sergio Isaguirre?
Okay. Hi, guys.
Hello.
So, my name is Sergio Isaguirre. My residence is at the Santa Fe Homes off of Madison Street in Indio. I think it would be in the great interest of the people to not have a tower market there or a gas station. I feel like it would be better for the people to have apartments there. I just think we have enough gas stations around Indio, and I just think it would be better for everybody. And that's really it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Ms. Karen Borja?
Hello. Yes. Okay. Good evening again, Karen Borja. I live on Miles and Monroe. By education, training, and career, I'm a political scientist. I've shared with you all in public comment and for the record of this meeting a 10-page paper on the need for a moratorium on gas stations in the city of Indio, a complete stop to future development of any and all gas stations for our city. I talk in there about the impacts to health, air pollution, water, our economy, and then future California laws around electric vehicles. In reality, Indio needs mixed use, not deadly use. Gas stations and this specific tower market on Monroe and Dr. Carrion is less than half a mile away from a Chevron, from a Shell, and a little more than a mile away from an AM/PM next to Cardenas. The Shell is next to Pollo Loco, and the Chevron is next to In-N-Out. I'll also say that artwork will not mitigate asthma. Artwork will not mitigate air pollution. Artwork will not mitigate congestion in that part of the street. I will also share that it is extremely shameful that this project has even gotten this far, and it will be shame on you all if you allow it to go any further. I'm asking you to stop putting gas stations on the Monroe corridor. We do not need gas stations in the poorest neighborhoods of Indio. This gas station will be across from a park, an elementary school, a hospital healthcare district. It's going next to another apartment complex between it'll be the gas station, the parking lot, and then we have another apartment complex on an already busy corridor on a light that stalls where air pollution occurs often enough as cars are stalled and waiting for those lights to turn green. We do not need another gas station on Monroe. Please stop putting gas stations next to the poorest people of Indio, next to some of the only places where affordable housing can be found. Please use this land as it is designed, mixed use, for actual housing. Indio has a requirement, and you heard from all of us 2-3 weeks ago, the dire need of housing. You cannot allow this project to go forward without considering housing at a minimum to be one of the needs and requirements to put on this parcel of land. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any requests to speak online?
I believe we do. We have a hand raised for John Becerra.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, commissioners. I just want to echo the sentiment that I think we definitely don't need another gas station on the Monroe corridor. Just really concerning that, this is a very common thing that keeps getting brought to the table. We need other options in our community. We need other avenues for people to kind of engage in our land, and another gas station isn't it. And that I drive through that corridor myself. It's always concentrated to put a gas station there. And this isn't a dig on the business itself. This is just the move of the commission, actually. Like, we always keep getting these gas stations in our poorest communities, and it more and more just reeks of just environmental racism. Like, I don't understand why this is a priority for us to keep putting gas stations near the poorest parts of our community. I don't get it. And it's something that, as a private citizen, it's concerning, because there's so many other things we need. And this is something that's just, I really don't want to engage in public comment anymore. But when I saw this, it lit something in me that's just like, why is this coming about? We've heard from community members that want so much more from this body. And yet, otra vez again, here we are, another gas station, another justification for more traffic, more concentration of pollutions, right in the next to people where there's only affordable housing. Like, go further north, go further south. Like, there's plenty of space there, but right here in the middle where everyone's going to the doctor or going to work or trying to get out. And we're looking at the fair right now. There's concentrations of traffic, and we're going to add more. So it just doesn't make sense that this is a priority, and I'll leave it at that. I think there's something else should be there. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any other folks that want to speak?
No, but written comments were received and distributed to the commissioners and posted to the City of Indio's website earlier today.
Thank you, and we received those and reviewed. Would the applicant like to make any further statements before the hearing is closed? Or, yeah. No. Or are there any questions for the applicant?
I have a couple.
Yes, please. Would you mind coming back up? Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Bassi. Thank you for being here today. Couple of questions. When I look at the building, I've seen your other buildings. There's one on Avenue 48, and I think it's heading toward Coachella. And then there's one not too far from my office in Palm Desert. So your gas stations are a little bit different than maybe what we think of a typical convenience store. So I do see that. When I look at this project, I know that the idea of mixed use has been discussed. Can you maybe give me a little background on when you looked at what you could put on this parcel? I'm sure that you've been working on this for more than, I don't know, maybe a year or longer.
Yeah, yes, we have. So we have looked at other options. One of the probably the obvious one is a medical feature. We do own the JFK building adjacent to it. We did own the Desert Courtyards also across the street. The JFK building we've owned for probably 4 years, and we still have vacancies there. So in terms of building a building for medical or a mixed-use thing didn't pencil out, didn't make sense because we couldn't fill our existing one. Housing, I'm not sure on that, first of all, on that corner of the intersection across from a hospital, on just that small land, housing to us isn't a fit. We have, our company owns 103 lots in Coachella that we haven't found a housing builder that's willing to go in there and build those. So we have looked at those features, those options, and they don't pencil out.
So since you have other gas stations throughout the valley, can you talk to me about the demand for gas stations? Like, how busy are your other stations? Is it pretty consistent? And also, when it comes to California rules for pollution, I'm assuming that you guys meet all regulation requirements by the state of California. And also, what is your plan in the future to go to EVs if that becomes the way of the future?
Sure. As far as the how busy they are, they're all the stores vary a little bit, depending. Some are have higher sales than others, but generally they all are do well in terms of some stores are a little busier maybe in the morning or in the evening, and a little less busy maybe at 2 o'clock. It just kind of depends on the store, but relatively consistent sales. The demand is still there for fuel. Our stores do have EV chargers. We have 2 spots in the front row earmarked for this location. And as far as future EV use, one thing with most all of our stores, you'll see is our lots. We want to make sure that there's enough room to maneuver around for cars and vehicles. And in the future, if there is, we get to an EV situation, we feel like we're going to have the space on our property to handle that. Because things do change, we understand that. But we do think we're in a position that we could, add more if necessary in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Fargo.
Thank you, Ms. Bassi. I have a couple of questions, if I may. Thank you as well. And thank you so much for your presentation. I'm more curious about what the market provides in terms of the percentage of perishable foods compared to, staples that are found in the pantry, and how much of your space is dedicated for alcohol sales as well.
Okay.
In terms of display.
On that, I'm gonna. So our general manager who runs the operations for the store, Nick Battaglia, is here, so he could speak more to that. So I'm gonna let Nick take this one.
Good evening. Since we just went through this exercise in Palm Springs, it's easy to come to the table here. Alcohol space is about 15%. We have stuff behind the sales counter, and we have stuff in the general space of the store, the bigger bottles. Staples, we do have a full line of groceries. It's not Vons, it's not Stater Brothers, but we do have a full line. You saw pictures of the meat and the produce. So if you want to come in and do shopping for 4 or 5 days for dinner, you can. We have 4 or 5 frozen food doors completely dedicated to frozen food. We do have the normal snacks, candy, etc., that you will find anywhere, but we've expanded that to groceries, frozen food, paper goods, pet food, automotive goods. So we have a full line to come in and do your fill and shopping very easily and not have to run to wherever the closest full supermarket is.
Thank you for that, Nick. And then also follow up, do you accept SNAP benefits? And
Yes.
In addition to that, are there shopping carts available for people to
There's
shop?
always shopping carts, hand baskets, and we take SNAP as soon as, it usually takes us 4 to 6 weeks to get approved because you can't get approved until you're open.
Copy
So
that.
it takes 4 to 6 weeks, but we have SNAP in every store, we have shopping carts in every store, we have shopping baskets in every store, just what you need to walk around and, like I said, do a good fill-in order, fill-in, take-home.
Thank you. And then also, I know that Mr. Bassi had mentioned it based on Commissioner Franz's question relating to the possibility of what the future may hold once the transition occurs in 2035. You know, obviously, there's going to be more requirement for this FEV. And so what, if any, information can you share with us with respect to potentially converting a station like that over time and what that would take, and what the possibility of that becoming a brown site may be as a result of some of the things that we hear relative to gas stations that may be going under soon?
Back to Mark. I do the inside of the store.
As far as the EV charge, you know, I think it's so early on that we don't know what exactly the technology is going to be. But again, that's, you know, one of the things, like, it's important to us to have enough space to get around. So from our standpoint, you know, if I had a crystal ball, I still see there being gasoline in 2035, maybe not to the extent that we have now, and I do see some form of EV chargers, and our locations are, you know, we feel like we can pivot to that pretty easily.
Thank you.
Any questions? No? Okay. I actually do have a few questions. Actually, one for staff that maybe we can table for now is remediation funds. Like, I know to Commissioner Fajardo's question, in the long-term impact and the transition from these types of uses into other uses, the cost and how that's going to impact us as a city. So I have a question if there's anything like that for us. But before we go into that, Kendra, I want to ask the applicant. Regarding the design of this, the mixed use is meant to promote various types of commercial and housing and really to make connections in community. And so I'm curious if you can speak on the design, if there is elements of the design currently that would, in the near future, allow for any sort of build up. We've changed our density in our city for the purpose of building up. And so I'm just curious if this current design is it can be used in the future for additional maybe housing if a developer would be interested in doing that with you.
Well, with the building itself, so I presume you're talking about maybe going vertically. I mean, that's really a structural question. I would assume that you would need to do some additional structural work for something like that. If it was a true mixed use where maybe the store was on the bottom and that one up top, that's I would, I'm not a structural engineer, I suppose it's possible. And Rich, you could probably speak to this better than I can, but we have a lot of landscaping that we worked with the planning department on. There is some space there if we chose to go that route in the future, but for a future developer or something like that. But I don't, I'm not sure I see that in my lifetime, but we'll see what that brings.
Thank you. The next question. How many stores are you currently operating in the area, and how many are in the city of Indio?
So we have a total of 8 Tower Markets, and there's 1 in Indio right now operating.
Gotcha. And then lastly, are you because of the gas pumps being the conditional use permit, and I've been engaging with community folks throughout the week actually, and people are saying the chicken is really good there. So I just want to.
Not the first time I heard that.
I want to say I'm going to try it out because I heard this various times. And so my question is, would you be considering moving the project forward without the conditional use permit of the pumps, or is that sort of like a no? Does it come in a package, or is this something that you're willing to provide?
That's part of the model. It doesn't, for us, it doesn't work without both.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
If I may, sir, I wrote something down when I think Mark was presenting at the time, if I'm mistaken. The question that I had also, one of the residents that I was speaking about this particular project was questioning whether or not Tower Market does, what's your community outreach? What do you folks do to incentivize the local communities where your locations reside? If you can just kind of give us a litany of what those might be.
On your, with philanthropic or
Yes, sir.
on?
Everything.
Yeah, well, I know, we're involved in a variety of ones mainly through our corporate office. I know we've helped redo some, a park in Coachella, you know, and some local, you know, some sports teams and things like that. So that's, comes out of our corporate office. So it doesn't usually say, you know, you don't necessarily see the word Tower Market on it. You might see Tower Energy Group from our standpoint.
Yes, please.
One more. I made a note again and missed it earlier. Part of what we're looking for, of course, is places that create jobs. So once the construction portion of this is done, can you give me an idea of how many employees you would have within this particular project? Is it 2, 5, part-time, full-time?
I'm going to say it's between approximately 10, but I'm going to refer to Nick here again.
Should call Nick.
A typical store will have between 10 and 14, depending on full-time, part-time employees. We're not open 24 hours. That hasn't come up, which usually is the first thing that comes up. So we never operate a 24-hour store. We're open 5 to 11, 6 to 11 on Sundays, to avoid the 24 robberies, all the other bad things that might happen at night. So we hire from within the community, and we obviously, half our employees in Cathedral City, Palm Desert are from Coachella and Indio. It's easier to hire from here than it is out there. So most of our employees are from this area, including Coachella.
Great. A follow-up to that. Do your employees get what we generally call benefits, right?
They get benefits if they're full-time. There are some insurance benefits even if you're not full-time on a limited basis. There's 401ks, there's everything any other company has, we have available to them.
Okay, that was my last question. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Do we close the public hearing to let staff respond to my question, or do we? Yeah, okay. So we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Staff?
Pertaining to redeveloping land from gas stations to another use, the cost varies dependent upon if there was like leaking underground storage tanks or if the fuel were to get mixed with the soil. So soil remediation on project sites can be pretty expensive. The price varies dependent on the size of the project, the location, the chemical mix in the soil, things of that nature. But it is a cost that, you know, is associated with businesses such as gas stations, dry cleaners, things that use more heavy chemicals. So again, that's only if those storage tanks leak, but that is always a risk.
And do we as a city have any sort of agreement with developers to feed into a fund, or do we as a city have anything in place that was preparing us so as these types of developments come into the city, are we prepared for the next 20, 30 years?
I'm not sure. That's something that we can look into, but I know the city defers back to state and federal law. EPA does have they set standards for that, as does the California Departments of Toxics.
Thank you. Yep.
I had a follow-up, Kendra, on that. So to your knowledge of any of our existing, I believe I counted roughly, and don't quote me on this, but I'll say it's 19 gas stations in the city of Indio with a population of about 93,000 people. So the question is, and I know that there aren't probably any metrics that are recommendations based on how many gas stations, you know, per the amount of residents. Can you speak to that, if any? And then secondly, to your knowledge, have there historically been any issues with respect to remediation of any existing gas stations in the city of Indio?
As far as I know, soil remediation in the city of Indio has not been an issue. The state has very strict standards and guidelines that developers and applicants must comply with. and to the best of my knowledge, they do so. That's more of a state-regulated issue. So I can look into that and find more information about it, but to my knowledge, there isn't any. I'm sorry, what was your other?
The second one had to do with respect to just metrics used in knowing market saturation rates relative to gas stations, and any metrics or information that could be shared with us.
I provided the commissioners a handout that shows the consumer spending in 2022 for gasoline and motor oil in the city of Indio and the forecasted demand in 2027. So consumer spending in 2022 showed $72,926,871 with a forecasted demand of $91,408,815. The projected spending growth just within the city of Indio is just under $18.5 million. So it shows that there still is a demand for gas stations within the city of Indio.
Okay, thank you. So it's safe to assume that obviously that demand, that projected demand, is based on that consumer spending from 2022 with the forecast out to 2027, looking at that spending growth projection. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, the handout that you gave us, this is just specific to the city of Indio, and this is per capita?
Correct.
Okay, great. And then, I guess my last question for staff, do we have these like numbers available? Like, what is the total amount of gas stations in the city, and distance from each other? And then, do we have a comparison? So, for example, what's in question right now is the zoning here. It's mixed use, and so I'm curious if what the impact of revenue for the city in relation to other potential commercial and housing uses. Is there, a way for us to put those things side by side and say, well, it might be more beneficial for us as a city, and as we're thinking about revenue for the city, what types of developments for these mixed-use zones we should go with? Is that something that we have?
It's not, but staff can look into that and see what we can get together for the next planning commission meeting.
Great, thank you, Kendra. Okay, do we have any comments from the commission?
We're going to go into deliberation.
Yep, we'll go into deliberation.
Okay.
Who would like to go first?
I can go first. I just want to say thank you to Tower Market for the presentation. Thank you to staff for today's presentation on what's being recommended. I just wanted to provide you folks just with my sort of, insight. And I see the concern that, maybe that a lot of folks have, particularly in the state of California with regard to, clearly trying to convert from fossil fuels to clean energy, while at the same time still trying to make, in this instance, transportation or EVs affordable for residents, particularly in a city like ours where you have, pretty high poverty rate, comparatively speaking to other cities like, I think it was the city of Petaluma that may have passed the first ban on gas station development. But when you compare the demographics and the needs of our city, they're not one and the same. Having come from Northern California, there's a huge difference. And if you look at the saturation of all the Teslas that are owned in Petaluma, you can see the reason why. And my point is that while I see that there's a concern, there still obviously might be a need to continue to provide these types of services to our folks that, in some instances, and a lot of people that I talk to, including myself, aren't in a position of owning an EV anytime soon. With respect to providing the services that are needed with Tower Market, I do think, obviously, the brand itself speaks for itself. There is an opportunity for residents to shop, hence a lot of the questions I had relative to what the market provides outside of just simply fueling up for petroleum. But the concerns are very sound. And while I think that the state's plan is aggressive, and it does speak to, obviously the need for clean energy, we have to, I think, approach this in a very balanced way, understanding the needs of our local community, those that obviously do depend on transportation, those that may depend on petroleum, that there may be a need. Outside of the relative distance between gas stations, I think it's prudent upon ourselves to really kind of think this all the way through without really getting too caught up in the rhetoric, because I think oftentimes that has a tendency to kind of stem some potential progress without really doing some homework on, well, what is truly the impact? What are the current emissions of these gas stations? I mean, what is the city of Indio's, major contributor to that? I could probably guess, but more importantly, if we are to set a trend as a city, and if, the city's vision is to obviously go, emissions-free at one point in the future, then let's start by looking at our own assets and converting them to EV. Let's set the model first before we expect our residents to do that. So that said, that was just a little bit on my 2 cents.
Thank you. Mr. Sim?
Yeah, thank you, staff, and thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. As you mentioned, these are designed with the utmost pride and thought put into them. I agree, and also I feel that the stores, the way they're run, are also exemplary. They are maintained well, kept clean. Staff is wonderful. Although there are some gas stations in the near vicinity, I feel Tower Market's fuel prices are generally more affordable than some other branded stations as well. So I think that'll be a big benefit to the community. A lot of people work there near the hospital. It's very easy to kind of fuel up on your way home from work or on your way into work. That being said, there's also, as you said, your store is not your typical convenience store, almost more of a deli, fresh market type situation with a lot of people in the hospital and medical sector right there. Would probably provide them, some healthier options for lunch rather than, running into your typical type convenience store, grabbing a hot dog and some chips. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do agree that we need to be concerned with how many gas stations we have, but I still feel that as much as I would love to say that California and the desert is ready to go completely clean energy, I just don't see it at this point. There's a lot of concern with access to electricity and our grids, and everything's not ready. So I don't think at this time we can say we don't need more gas stations, because we can see the demand, and also our population continues to grow, and people need to have access to what they need today and hope that we can do better 30, 40 years from now. I do think that they are slightly different than your typical, gas station. There's definitely more than the chips. I hope that the people that work and live there will enjoy the chicken. It sounds like that's the call to fame. And so as much as I wish, we could somehow create housing around this, which I know that is the thing that we are most focused on, and as was mentioned, we just approved an affordable housing project, and that created, a lot of energy within the community, some positive, some not, but it's things that we have to work forward to. But at this time, I think that as much as I wish that area was a medical corridor, which has been dreamed about for years, I've lived here since 1994 and grew up in Coachella, so literally next door. And the hospital has, hopefully plans to expand, but that's going to depend, and they do have some land already on their side that they're going to use before they expand across the street. So I think this might be a really good use of that land that's been sitting there vacant for my entire life and probably longer than that. So I want to thank staff, and everyone for coming today.
Thank you. Well, my comments is having good chicken is not supposed to be at the expense of public health. And so, for me, I think one of the biggest concerns is looking into the future. This dependency that we as a city are creating by moving projects like this forward, we should be putting public transit, we should be investing in bike lanes, we should be looking at how to create connectivity, resolving the issues so that people don't need to wait until they can afford an EV And the reason people have to leave is because we're not creating jobs in the city. The gentleman is saying they're going all the way out to Cat City to go work for his tower markets over there. And so this is a problem that we have as a city and as a commission when we continue to approve and give these special condition permits. You know, we are responsible for the future, and we are responsible for the more immediate future as well. And so the problems with the grid are problems that we as a city created for ourselves. The problems that we have with transportation are issues that we created for ourselves, and that it is our responsibility to try to, one, mitigate the problems that we've created for ourselves, and two, to try to get in front of creating additional problems for us in the future. Environmental impacts, the environmental impacts that these gas stations will have for our future, to me, is not worth, good chicken. And truly, the bigger concern to me is that we should be bringing these types of services like fresh foods to our community, but not necessarily tied to gas stations. The project to me would be a very different proposition if they were coming and saying, hey, we want to bring fresh foods and a convenience store to the neighborhood. I'm also concerned about something that was said on public record about the tie, the ownership to the hospital. Like, you know, to me, that seems to be a concern because, well, it just is. And the other thing that I think is important to note is that, you know, we need to really consider the public comments. We had an overwhelming number of people being engaged, more and more so in the last 2+ years that I've been in the Planning Commission. We have seen a sizable increase of community participation. They are coming and telling us that we have not been doing things in the best way. And the community is coming out and saying, hey, there are better choices to be made, and you're making them on our behalf. And so to me, I want to acknowledge all of the folks that are tuning in, that submitted public comments, the folks that are coming out. This is an incredible moment for you all to, you know, see the decisions that are being made and be part of them and take on the roles of the decision making for the city that you want to design for yourself. And so those are my public comments. And I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
I'll go ahead and motion that we recommend to approve resolution number 2052 of the Planning Commission of the City of Indio, California, conditionally approving the Tower Market conditional use permit and the design review to conditionally allow a fueling station and convenience store within the mixed-use neighborhood zoning district off of Dr. Carrion Boulevard and Monroe Street, assessor parcel number 616-120-058, conditionally approving design review for the project and determining that the proposed project is categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to section 15332 of the California CEQA guidelines.
I'll second.
Can we get roll call, please?
Commissioner Isiano,
Yes.
Commissioner Fajardo,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Franz,
Yes.
Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja.
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Congratulations. All right, moving up to public hearing item 5.2. Oh, yes, if we could have Commissioner Lopez join us again, please. Welcome back, Commissioner. And then can we get a staff report for item 5.2, please?
Yes.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Nicolas Huitron, Planning Technician with the Community Development Department. Item 5.2 is a design review approval request for Premium Packing Incorporation to allow the construction of a surface parking lot within the City of Indio. The applicant is Ronnie Alderetti, who is representing Premium Packing, Inc. The parcel has a land use designation under the General Plan 2040 of Workplace Employment District and is zoned under the previously adopted Indio Municipal Code as a manufacturing district. Under the manufacturing district, auto-related uses such as a parking lot is permitted. The proposed project consists of the construction of a surface parking lot that will develop 114 parking stalls and 5 handicap parking stalls, a perimeter wall, street lights, fire hydrant, and landscaping on approximately 1.47 acre vacant site. The parking lot is proposed to support the business operations of the applicant, whose offices are located immediately south of the project site. The proposed project will be combining 3 parcels at the cross street located south of Enterprise Way and west of Van Buren Street. The affected parcels are 612, 110, 023, 024, and 025. The proposed project will have an entry and exit locations on Van Buren Street and as well as on Enterprise Way. The project applicant submitted a landscape site plan showing approximately 26.56% of the parking area being landscaped with several types of desert native and drought-resistant trees, including Acacia annuera and Phoenix daticifera, or commonly known as a date palm, which will be placed throughout the parking lot and as well as the outer edges, providing shade for the vehicles. The proposed project is compliant with the General Plan 2040 as well as the previously adopted Indio Municipal Code. With the application of conditions of approval, the project can be approved. Please understand that the conditions of approval are binding and must be adhered to. In conclusion, staff recommends the Commission adopt Resolution 2053, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Indio, California, conditionally approving the design review DR 2208506 for a surface parking lot of 114 parking stalls and 5 handicap parking stalls, perimeter wall, street lights, fire hydrant, and landscaping on a currently vacant 1.47 acre site located west of Van Buren Street and south of Enterprise Way, and finding that the project is exempt from the CEQA Environmental Quality Act, the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15303, subsection A. The project applicant is here tonight if you have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Yes.
I have one. What is the business that's right next door to the parking lot?
So the business right next door is Premium Packing. Premium Packing. They are a farm labor contract.
Okay, and the parking lot's going to be used by
them.
Yes. So that is adjacent to their business, and it's
Yes.
going to be used by their employees or their customers or whoever.
It'll be used by the business itself to have their vehicles on there, as well as any employees that need to use it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have a question. I know that this is based on previous zoning regulations, but currently, what is the percentage of areas that are not landscaped that are shaded in the plan?
It would be, so it's 26% of the parking is being landscaped. So the opposite of that, I don't know that number off the top of my head.
That is not currently shaded.
Yes.
Okay.
74%.
Not shaded. Okay. Thank you. All right. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Thank you for your report. I'm sorry. Can the applicant, is the applicant here to make a presentation? Yes, please.
My name is Armando Magana. I'm a civil engineer, land surveyor. I did the plans for the paving and parking plans, and I just wanted to kind of just briefly say the purpose of the parking lot. Premium Packing is a third-generation farm labor contractor that has been serving the Coachella Valley since 1999. Premium Packing provides essential labor and custom harvesting services for many farmers throughout the state of California and currently employ over 750 seasonal essential employees in the Coachella Valley. The purpose for the parking lot is to store harvesting equipment, buses, vans, and other support equipment required for harvest. The adjacent building to the proposed parking lot to the south is also property of the Premium Packaging, where administration, payroll, and human resources functions are executed. The parking lot is vital to function of the business. In addition to the close proximity of the offices, it allows easy access for maintenance personnel to service equipment. So as I mentioned, I am the civil engineer, land surveyor. I did the hydrology report and the WQMP. So I'll continue processing the plans after the conditions of approval are processed.
Great, thank you. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak?
There are none.
Okay, great. Do we have any questions for the applicant? No. I actually do have a couple questions, sir, if you wouldn't mind coming back up, or whoever. My questions are currently about the design. You know, one of the concerns is the heat island problem that, you know, these types of parking structures create. And so I'm curious if you could go more into any sort of the, you know, what are the elements? Do you have light colored materials? And again, I know that the code is not the standards previous to what we've recently adopted. And so my question is, could you give us sort of any indication of anything that we have as a priority now with the new code? And then are you willing to consider some of these additional considerations within the code now for your project?
I mean, this parking lot is primarily going to be used as a support functions for our current business. We're farm labor contractors, so we harvest. We're not adding more personnel to our office that we currently have, where we have handicap parking and normal parking in the front. It's really to support our tractors, our pull trucks, buses, vans. We have fleets of vans that we transport our employees with. So it's more of a yard, but the City of Indio is asking me to hardscape and do, I'm pretty much following what you guys needed for us to do in order for me to have a yard for my business. I feel like I'm doing a lot right now just to get where I'm at now, but I don't know what you guys are proposing.
Sure. So I'm
sorry.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Ronnie Alderete, General Manager of Premium Packing.
Thank you, Mr. Alderete. Yeah, I wonder if maybe we can read our current heat island reduction code, maybe, Kendra?
If you give me 1 second, I'll pull it up so I can read it verbatim. If you want to ask any other questions while I'm
no, I think it's in relation to this, because as you know, we've changed our code requirements, and for surface parking right now, you know, the concern that these create a urban heat island problem, you know, that a lot of cities are experiencing. We are trying to offset that, the environmental impacts of them. And so your project, as my understanding, is under a previous version of our code, and that's what you're being asked to meet. And so I want us to hear what we've most recently adopted, so that then we can have a conversation about any potential features that you might be willing to consider.
So in the Unified Development Code section 3.03.08L, it refers to the heat island reduction, and it reads as, in order to reduce ambient surface temperatures in parking areas, at least 50% of the areas not landscaped shall be shaded of light-colored materials with a solar reflectance index of at least 29, or a combination of shading and light-colored materials. Shade may be provided by canopies, shade structures, trees, or other equivalent mechanisms. If shade is provided by trees, the amount of shading is to be reached within 15 years.
Great, thank you. So that's our current code update, and so I'm just curious if there are any sort of additional considerations or anything additional that you might be willing to consider for your employees, especially if this is going to, be for their parking, anything about shade?
No, definitely. We'd be willing to put some shade structures up. That's, to do 50%, I don't know if that's feasible, but I'd be willing to put some shade structures up to help with the heat.
Great, then if staff can work with the applicant. Okay, any questions for the applicant? No? Thank you very much. And we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and open up for deliberation. Sir?
No questions?
Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, great. I just want to say thank you for your willingness and for hearing us out. This is a big concern for our city, and we really enjoy when developers are looking to work with us to impact our community in a positive way. So thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion. There is.
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution number 2053. A resolution of Planning Commission, City of Indio, conditionally approving design review, DR 22-08-506 for surface parking lot at the 1.47 acre site located west of Van Buren, south of Enterprise Way.
I'll second that motion.
Can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Isiano,
Yes.
Commissioner Fajardo,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Franz,
Yes.
Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you and congratulations. Okay, moving on to action items. There are none. No study session items. Are there any commissioner comments? Okay, great. Any staff items?
There are none.
Great. Thank you. Well, then we can go ahead and adjourn our meeting to the next Planning Commission meeting, March 8th, 2023, right here. Thanks, everyone.